Hi, everyone. My name is Alex Uding, and I'm so excited to be representing Advancing Athletics and our partnership with the Ohio Tactical Officers Association to present our performance and wellness platform for tactical athletes called Fuel, Move, Recover. We had been hoping to do this in person at the 2020 OTOA conference, but we still are grateful that we can give this information out, and hopefully we'll be seeing you guys next year. This webinar is going to talk about the movement portion of Fuel, Move, Recover. We are clinical experts in human performance and wellness, and we offer free seminars for first responders like you and coaching for individuals through advancingathletics.com. At the end of this presentation, I'm going to offer a special promotion for those OTOA members to get familiar with our different services and things we offer. So stay tuned for that at the very end. And let's get started on movement. A little bit about myself. I'm a physical therapist and a performance coach. I originally entered the field as a performance coach, and so I got a lot of experience with strength and conditioning. And then as I got my PT license, I got to do physical therapy, and now I do both. And it's really exciting for me because you get to bridge that performance gap a little bit, bring my knowledge as a physical therapist into coaching and vice versa. And I think it's helped me create better training opportunities and recovery opportunities, having the knowledge on both ends of the spectrum. So I've become really passionate about making sure that we are preparing and performing for life. I'm a certified running coach. I have specialization training with pelvic health. I'm a pre and postnatal exercise coach. I have a background with some training in precision nutrition, and I currently work at Momentum Physical Therapy as a PT and performance coach in Milford, Massachusetts. If you have any questions or you want to reach out, please email me at move@advancingathletics.com. So Advancing Athletics is brought to you by blah, blah, blah. Michaela is going to talk about this, cut this out, blah, blah, blah. So there's three big pillars of performance, I like to say. So we've got fuel, move, and recover, which is what this whole thing's all about. With fueling, we're considering our nutrition and our hydration. With movement, we're thinking about activity and performance. And with recover, we're thinking about mental health and recovery aspects, and all kind of feed into each other. And I think that's the biggest thing we want you guys to take away from this, is how the three are integrated. And when we're successful in one, it's going to help the other. If we're struggling in one, it's going to impact the other. And so we want to address all sides to improve performance. So how is movement created? This picture is from Wash U in St. Louis, where I got my physical therapy degree. And the big takeaway from it that I want you to get is that we are a bunch of integrated systems that work together and are impacted by different things that is going to result in how we move. So in the center of this circle, we've got our different body systems, and they all are going to work together or not work together. And that would be something we'd have to address, but we consider those different systems and how they interact with each other and how that's going to produce movement. But movement's also going to be impacted by the outside square. So our environment, our social support, our mental, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual health, and our nutrition. So what's environment? Environment's your location, situation, equipment, and materials. So I like to think with location, where are you at? We've got people, sometimes you're training at home, sometimes you're training in a gym, sometimes you're on vacation. Is your environment threatening? Is it safe? Is it comfortable? Is it hot, humid, cold? There's a lot of things going on in the environment that's going to impact how you perform. What are the circumstances of the situation you're in? Is it threatening, non-threatening, stressful, relaxing? Did you choose to be in this situation? Do you have to be in this situation? What are your expectations of the situation? Is this for work? Are you doing stuff for pleasure? What's the time of day? So what's the situation that you're in? Equipment and materials. What's available to aid your performance in this situation? So again, depending on the other things going on might impact what equipment and materials we have. How does it impact how you move? What are you wearing? What's your uniform like? What tools and equipment do you have to carry? What vehicle are you driving? What shoes are you wearing? Do you have weights, no weights, bands? What's your gym environment or your training environment like? So again, I know I threw a lot of things out there talking about the environment, but performance is either in your daily life, at work, or it's purposeful in a training environment or sporting environment. So the answers to these questions are going to change a little bit. Nutrition. And Lindsay's going to cover a ton on nutrition. But the big takeaway for me with this is sometimes we don't recognize always that maybe our nutrition is the issue. So if you're noticing some of these things like decreased endurance or dips in the day, or you're just having trouble concentrating, or you're feeling really irritable, or you're getting stressed when really a situation shouldn't be that stressful. If you notice you're just not feeling as strong, your performance has gone down, or you keep getting these nagging, reoccurring injuries, those can be indicators that there might be something going on with nutrition. And so we need to consider it. So it's not always just a, am I hungry thing? Am I not hungry? It's reflecting on our performance as well. And you might realize the problem is actually by seeing what's happening in your performance. Social relationships and support. So who and what do you have around you that's either supporting you in a positive way or in a negative way? And how is that impacting your daily performance or your work performance? And so that can be a lot of different things. You're at the center of it, but we've got all these people around us. Family, community, what's happening in the world, our workplace, our spiritual support, coaches and medical team members, friends, all these people are giving you inputs. And so they might be impacting your movement in some sort of capacity because of those relationships. And then our mental, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual health. Our mental health is going to impact the way we move. Are we afraid of a certain movement? Did we get hurt one time? And so I'm afraid to do that movement in the gym that I just avoid it completely. How's my decision making? Do I start panicking when I have a lot of decisions to make? And so as I start to worry and get stressed and elevated from that situation, maybe I start tightening certain muscles up. So the way we think, the way we feel emotionally, and how our well-being is, the way we're interpreting our stress from the environment, all that's going to impact the way we move. And so performance occurs along a spectrum. We have to move to live. So what does that mean? What are the demands of your life that you have to move for? What does living well mean to you? So, with your daily movements, if you're moving the way you want to move, how is that living well? And if feel like you're not living well, is it because you're not moving well? What do we have to do so you feel good day to day? We have to move to work, right? All of you guys have very demanding jobs. What is it you actually have to do to perform your job successfully at work? What does a successful career look like for you? So we need to make sure that we're training you in a way that not only lets you successfully perform your job now, but where do you want to go with your job? And what does that mean? And how do we train you so you keep growing and adapting for what you need? And what do we have to do to make sure you feel good at work? And then we have to move to perform. So with the performance side and how we train, we need to think about what movements are you doing when you are living just daily life? Not thinking about work, but just daily living. Or do you have a long commute to work? Are you always lifting kids? Are you walking the dog? What do you have to do to live daily life? And then what are your job demands? And how do we make sure that we cover both in your training program? Are you always doing repeated patterns? So you're becoming unbalanced in these demands. And how can we address that? And then we need to make sure that when you train and when you move to perform, it's in a way that you're always continuing to grow. So there's a few principles of movement that I want you to think about. One size does not fit all. And so I think this is where sometimes giving generic training programs or watching something, a YouTube trainer, or going to a fitness class where everyone's doing the same thing, or everyone gets a generic workout plan, sometimes gets discouraging because maybe it's not where we're at, or maybe it's not appropriate for our body. And it gets defeating because it's like, well, that just doesn't feel good. That I don't want to keep doing this because it's just not right for me. And so I think this is really important. And I want to really reiterate that one size does not fit all. You have a unique body. We are not all built the same. Sometimes we have actual structures and physical components that we need to take into account when teaching techniques. So looking at these two pictures here, can you see how the setup of the person on the left and the person on the right might be different? Telling these people that their knees and toes need to align for a squat straight forward might not be appropriate for them, but sometimes we push people into this kind of technique, and it might be uncomfortable or cause pain and then discourage someone from working out. So definitely, I recommend if you're struggling with working out, let's find out the little things that are unique to you physically that we can accommodate for and teach you about so you can move in the body that you were made to move in. The body is capable of change at any time. So we are never too old to make changes to our training routine. We are never too hurt to make changes to our training routine. I think the biggest thing is we need to see where you're at, meet you where you're at, find out where your goals are, what's stopping you, and going from there. But we are always capable of change and adaptation. It's a matter of finding the training that's going to get you there. The body loves getting into habits. And so to me, there's no such thing as perfect movement, right or wrong movement. To me, the biggest kind of gray area is, do we always do the same movements over and over and over again? And is that causing us to repeatedly use the same body parts, get sensitive to the same body parts, that then it leads to maybe some injury risk or some pain sensitivity or whatever it might be, because we're always doing the same things, that we're neglecting underusing other body parts of our body, or those parts are being overworked. So this picture just kind of shows, he demonstrates in his jump the knees falling in, which isn't always a bad thing. So I don't want to use fear to say like you can never do that, but I just want to show how he repeats a pattern in these two pictures. The body likes that. The body likes efficiency. So it's going to find the easy way to do something, the familiar way to do something, because to the body, that's what it's always done. Pain is common, but not always normal. And so I think this becomes important because we can shove a lot of things under the rug and just accept pain for being there and for what it is. And just because a lot of things or people report pain during certain exercises or tasks doesn't mean that it has to be there. And so, if this person is a postpartum mom doing sit-ups, she might be like, oh, my abs are supposed to hurt, my back's supposed to hurt, I just have to get through it because I just had a kid. Not true. Okay. Just means that we need to address certain factors, certain routines, maybe certain habits, get you aware of certain body parts and build you up so something is not painful. So don't accept pain. If you are having discomfort, please reach out, address it, because that's going to make everything else feel a little bit better. Performance success requires physical and movement literacy. Be aware of how you move. Don't just go through the actions of it. Like, we don't always want to have to think through movement, but at the same time, we want to be aware of what our body's doing. And some people are very in tune with their body, and other people have no idea what their body's doing, and they just go for it. And I think when we're aware of how we move, we can kind of interpret what the body's telling us. If it's giving a pain signal, you can then maybe perhaps make an adjustment. It goes away. You're empowered, you're successful, you can keep going. Just having awareness to those little things, or maybe you're just feeling a dip in energy and you're just feeling really tired, job's been really stressful, you've been working really hard in the gym, and you're needing a deload week. And so learning what the body's telling us can help us then address and accommodate what we need moving forward. So I think with that, we also want to make sure that we train for our demands, like I mentioned before. So in the two pictures here, the job demand is to carry this. So put carries in your training program to address and make sure you're ready for what your job is going to need. And there's a lot of ways we can be creative with it. So have some awareness to what you need to do, how your body's doing it, how you feel when you're doing it, so you can build success. Setbacks can happen. We can do everything right, and sometimes we still get injured or we still hit a plateau, and we need to learn to work through those things. And so it just provides an opportunity to learn different things about ourselves during that time. Injury for me is never a reason to stop being active. It's finding the other ways you can be active to work around that particular injury or surgery or whatever it might be. So it is temporary. Like I said before, the body is always capable of change. And so when a setback happens, we work through it, we figure out what the next steps are, and you always keep moving forward. You change as we grow, we change physically, mentally. And so as that happens, sometimes we have to make adjustments to our training, what our goals are, what, training routines you did when you were younger might be different when you're older, and not because you aren't physically capable, but maybe recovery looks a little bit different now. Maybe your priorities have shifted and you're not spending hours in the gym anymore because you have a family and kids. And so you need to change routines like that. So it's okay to let yourself change. I don't love comparing to who you were, or because sometimes that then gives a defeat that I used to be able to do this, I'm never going to get back there, so why bother? Or it can discourage the opportunity that you do have to keep growing. So just recognize that sometimes we have to make changes, and that's okay. It's a good thing. You keep moving forward despite a change. So what are common barriers to performance? Is it time, access to a place to work out, equipment, knowledge? Is it just knowing, like, where do I start? Like, I know I need to be active, but I just don't know how, or I don't like anything I've ever done before. So if I don't like working out, do I have any other options? Is it confidence? You just don't know how to work out, or you've never been taught certain skills, and so you're afraid of getting hurt, or you just don't know where to begin. So it's like, why begin at all? Is it health and physical status? Are you currently in pain and just not starting anything? Do you have a recent health condition that maybe is limiting you in some way, so you've never learned how to work out around it? What are the things stopping you? Once you identify these barriers, we make a plan to keep moving forward. So figure them out. Take the time to kind of reflect. Is it just, I don't have support, I'm not good at working out on my own, I need some accountability? Is it those questions I asked before? Find out what they are for you and really reflect on them, because that's going to be your starting point of making a plan that's realistic for you. Physically, where are you starting? What is your current fitness level? I think probably for everyone listening, we're going to have a lot of variety. Some people aren't going to be working out at all, and their performance is mostly what they do during their day and with their job. Other people might be workout fiends and they're always in the gym, kind of taking care of that aspect, but are they working out in the most optimal way that they can? Who knows? So it's identifying where you are and not judging yourself for where you think you should be or where you want to be, but we have to start somewhere, and it has to be with where you are now. And do you have physical limitations that you're struggling to work around? If you do, let's address them. Let's consider the positions you consistently find yourself in. Again, this is kind of talking about what I said before. If we're always doing the same thing, or we're always carrying the same thing on one side, we might be repetitively using the same muscles, the same structures, and our body is getting used to that, and we want to make sure we stay balanced. So what are you always doing? What tasks are you always doing? So not only is it positions, but what tasks do you repetitively have to do to make sure that we're training to complement it, but also training to balance it? What do you enjoy about being physically active? That's going to help us build something that's more enjoyable for you, that hopefully makes you a little more accountable and easier to adhere to something. What are the things you hate? What don't you like about being physically active? And how do we work around those things? Is it dislike because you're uncomfortable or you're in pain? Is it dislike because it's like, I hate running. I don't want to be a runner, but I know I need to do cardio. Let's find the thing that works for you then. How are you feeling, which Lindsay is going to talk about. How are you recovering, which Michaela is going to talk about. And what kind of support do you need? So we know where your starting point is. What's stopping you? How can we get you that support? So how do we move? What creates movement? Strength, which is your ability to create force. Speed, which is how long it takes to perform a movement. Power is the ability to create maximal force in minimal time. Aerobic capacity is the ability of the heart and lungs to deliver oxygen to the body. Anaerobic capacity is maximal work during maximum intensity for a short-term task. So that's like sprinting. Balance is our ability to stay upright or in control of our body movement. Balance could be occurring still. So, we're standing on one leg in place, or it can be while you're moving, right? And you're having these different components where you have to maintain balance as you're moving. So climbing a ladder, running, we're on one leg for a certain amount of time. Technically, there's a balance component there, right? Agility, the ability to move and change direction and position quickly in response to changing situation. Stability is the ability to prevent movement in one area of the body while creating movement in another area. Mobility is the ability to move through a range of motion. Coordination is the ability to integrate and perform movements efficiently and effectively. And integration of systems is the utilization of different body systems to create performance in response to the environment and situational demands. So sometimes this is obvious, like we know our cardiac system has to work when we're working out, so our heart can pump oxygen to the rest of our body. And other ones may be less obvious. So I want to make sure that I'm challenging vision, because sometimes we don't always have vision available to us. And can we perform well when we can't see as well? During decision making, I want a mental task combined with a physical task, because sometimes we have to be thinking at the same time we're performing. And I don't want you to have to think about how your body is moving. I just want it to naturally move. So it's how we integrate these different systems. So what needs to be included? The whole body, okay? It's not just arm day, it's not just leg day. We need to consider everything. So the spine and different parts of the spine do different things. So it's really important knowing, what does my cervical or my neck do? What's my thoracic spine, which is that upper back by the ribs and stuff? It's a huge component in movement. Make sure we're doing things to mobilize and train that thoracic spine. What's our low back doing? This is a common area to develop pain. Why is it developing pain there? So making sure we understand the spine. The core are not just our abdominals. There's a lot going on in the core. And so it's this coordination of our diaphragm and how we breathe, our abdominals. And we've got a bunch of different abdominals, not just the six-pack muscles in front, but we have ones on our side. We have lower abdominals. Our pelvic floor, huge, amazing muscle group that oftentimes gets neglected. That is, I think, a big game changer for tactical athletes, is learning how to integrate it, because it can really make a difference in performance. And then our back muscles. We've got our upper extremities, which there's a lot going on there, making sure our shoulder blades are taken care of. And it's not just our arms and elbows and forearms. And same thing with the leg. We've got the hip, we've got the knee, we've got the foot and ankle. There's a lot going on there. So we have to hit everything to make performance as optimal as we can. So you want to establish a baseline. Again, I said finding out where you're at. Then we want to establish foundation and fundamentals, right? So learning how to move for your body, kind of getting used to turning on muscles that maybe we haven't connected well with before, or even realize are available for us to use. We want to learn how to move through fundamental movement patterns, like squatting, like hinging, like rowing and a pull and pushing. We want to learn how to take movement and apply it and integrate it into ways that you are going to be moving and performing for your job. We continually have to challenge and stress the body. If we don't push it, we're never going to adapt and change. We're going to stay where we're at. So we have to apply stress and challenge to the movements that we're trying to integrate into our routine. And we have to reassess along the way. What is working well? What do we need to change? What areas of performance do you want to improve on? And how can we expand that as we go? We have to overload. And overload, it's this fine line where you can go too far or not load enough, right? So we want to stay in the middle. We don't want to overtrain and overload to the point where we get hurt, but we don't want to underload either. So overload gets impacted by intensity, so the amount of effort we're giving, volume, so the total quantity of work we're doing, so sets and reps if you need like an example like that, and the conditions, what the environment that we're working in. Is it, a high stress environment, heat, humidity, you're wearing maybe a weighted vest? Is it rest time, equipment, strategies where we're having you do mental and physical tasks? So overload gets impacted by all those things, and we can choose to manipulate what we want so it meets you where you're at and where you're working towards your goals. There's 3 parts of overload. You can stimulate. So this is when the load is greater than your ability. This is how you are going to build and change. But again, like I said, it can't be too far where you add too much load and it breaks the camel's back, right? There's retraining, and this is when your load matches your ability. So this is when like you're learning to develop consistency and control, but you're going to maintain the level that you're at if you're always in this retrain loading kind of period. And sometimes we detrain. So this is when your load is less than what you're actually capable of. And we can be very intentional with using this. Sometimes we'll use it for rest week or kind of detrain, deloading week, because you've just been working really, really hard and your body's saying, I just need a little bit of rest. Sometimes it could be those overworked parts. We're going to detrain while we're stimulating other body parts. So it's this combination of how we load you so you can feel good as you're performing. We need training to be specific. So we are purposefully going to stress different systems. Does your aerobic system need to be worked on a little bit more? Does your fast anaerobic system need to be developed? Do you need more muscular endurance? Do you need to be able to create more power in a short period of time? What systems do we need to develop for you? Movement patterns. So this is exercise choice, and we want it to be efficient. We want you moving well. So this is why we want to know what you have to do at work. And the techniques that we teach you should hopefully make your movement patterns at work or at home or in the gym a little bit easier so you're feeling smooth and safe as you perform. And conditions. We can be very specific with the conditions. How fast are you performing a movement? What kind of contraction are we eliciting? What angle are we putting your arms or having you flex through your hip? Changing the angle is going to impact what muscles are working. Is it reactive? So am I giving you a call and you're having to do a movement based off of when I tell you to do it? Is it controlled where you're in charge? What's the environment? Is it stable floor? Is it unstable surface? Is it in the pool? So the conditions, again, we just need intent behind them to make them specific for what we're working on. Training needs to be individualized. I think I've stressed this a lot. We are not all built the same. And so we have different physical structures. We have different laxity, so how loose we naturally are. We have different imbalances that we've developed by just living our daily lives. We have different medical presentations. We have different mental health presentations. And all that's going to impact how you perform. I need to ask you about it, and we need to work on making sure the training plan reflects those things. What are your activities and daily demands? Again, I need to know what you need to do to thrive. What's your tolerance to stress? Some people are aerobic responders, so they do really well with a lot of endurance tasks. They jump right in. Their build-up period might not be as much. Other people, it takes a while to build up maybe their aerobic capacity. And so we need to have a plan that reflects that. Some people can't run a lot of miles in a week. And so we're not going to, it's about quality mileage instead of a lot of mileage. Other people don't need as much rest, so we can push mileage a little bit more, just in the example of running there. Again, what's your nutrition? What's your sleep? What's your recovery? Not for surgery, for example, not everyone recovers at the same speed. We have general timelines, but some people are fast healers, some people are slower healers, and we have to respect them. What's your time like? How much can you dedicate to training? What's your access to training like? And we have to add variety. So the body adapts when new inputs are provided. We can't always train the same way. If you want to continue to grow, we have to change things up in any of the ways I've mentioned before. So again, what are your repeated movements? I hope at the end of this, if anything, you can reflect on, what do I always do? How can I address that in the gym? How can I make sure I also balance it? Pick exercises that are different from your repetitive movements. Change your gym routine up. Don't just do things because you like it or you're good at it. We sometimes get, I think, tunnel vision towards doing things we really enjoy. How can we make things that we either are unfamiliar with or don't like as much more enjoyable to you, or integrate it into your training to make sure you're balanced? So for me, there are 3 big T's. Types, and that's the type of exercise. You know, there's a lot of different ways to get aerobic exercise. You do not have to be a runner. You don't have to bike. It could be impact, non-impact. If you're a strength trainer, if you really enjoy strength training, maybe we do more of a metabolic or high intensity interval training to get you some of the aerobic benefits. So there's a lot of ways to take exercise and find exercises that work for you. What's your time like? How long do you have to exercise? Okay, some people can chunk out a long period of time a day. Some people can't. And you can accumulate exercise time throughout your day. It does not have to all be at once. And I think that's really important. You know, imagine if you did 10 squats in a moment throughout the day, 10 squats while you're in the shower, 10 squats while you're in the kitchen, maybe kind of washing dishes, 10 squats while you're brushing your teeth. You do that twice a day. Suddenly that's 40 squats in probably minimal time. So sometimes it's just a matter of integrating exercise like that. Every time you walk from the kitchen to your bedroom, you're going to do walking lunges instead. Doesn't mean you have to go to the gym, but you're doing something. Also with time, you can kind of play with how fast you perform a movement, how slow you perform a movement. Do you add pauses? How long's your rest? What's the duration of the routine itself? So the time you can manipulate a lot. Technique, again, finding what works for your body. How we change positions changes what muscles we use. What positions and techniques do you need to be able to apply for your work demands? So maybe there's certain job tasks that are optimized when you perform them a certain way. And how can I take that, knowing that that's what you have to do, and create an exercise that's going to use a similar technique? And then the 3 Ps, priorities. What are your priorities in addressing your fitness, right? Maybe it's not starting off with the training side. We're going to have to incorporate it because movement's so important. Maybe you need to prioritize nutrition right away or recovery right away, and we integrate these in. You know, is not spending a lot of time in the gym a priority for you? If it is, that's completely fine. How do we make short routines, again, that you accumulate through the day? Just reflect on what's important to you. What are you willing to compromise and change? What aren't you willing to? And how do we build a program around that? Physical literacy, again, get to know your body. Get to know how it's feeling and when it's telling you it needs something to change. Physical stress grows performance. We have to be stressed to get better, but it's making sure that we live within the ranges that it's not too stressful for us. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about is pain. And I'm not going to go into significant detail about this because pain is a very complex topic. If you want more information, please don't hesitate to reach out. Also, if you email move@advancingathletics.com, I can send you a handout in regards to pain with some of this information and additional information just for you to have a little bit more knowledge, improve your ability to kind of read your body and things it's telling you. So with muscle soreness and the pain you might feel after a new activity or you've worked really hard, it comes on 24 to 72 hours after the event. For some people, it's right away. They feel it. Other people, it comes that second or third day after. The duration should only last a few days, and then you feel like you can kind of get back to normal. Muscles are tender to touch. They might be the thing that you felt burning and working really hard during your exercise. There can be a minimal or dull discomfort. Some people report stiffness. They might report aching when they're resting, or that tingling throbbing after they've worked hard that just kind of dissipates. The discomfort tends to be more global through muscles themselves versus an isolated spot. The symptoms oftentimes feel worse when you go from being still or in a certain position and then you transition out of it. So if you've been on the couch and you go to get up and you take those first few steps and it just feels awful, or your arms have been relaxed by your side and then you go to reach above your head or bend your elbow towards you and you're just reminded that you just worked out your arms really hard. But you know that even though you're experiencing that discomfort with repeated movement, it starts to feel better. So we encourage when there is this delayed onset muscle soreness that you have a mobility kind of recovery routine. The more you move, the more you're going to feel better with appropriate rest. And with that being said, this is why people tend to alternate muscle groups when they're working out. So they can work a muscle group really hard, and maybe that next day they're not going to exercise that same muscle group to the same extent. Maybe they'll hop on a bike, kind of let their legs go, but then they'll work out and really target another area and then hit it later in the week. And just balancing that out allows us to get more out of training because we're not totally exhausting ourselves. We allow ourselves to recover between days. Now, muscle soreness should not interfere with your daily routine. It should not be so significant that you feel like you can't move or do things that you need to get done and through your day. If you do, it might be an indicator that maybe the level you're training at is a little too high. We need to tweak some things, change things up so you can feel better kind of going throughout your day. Now, acute pain, there might be an activity, a trauma, or an incident where something happened to an area of your body, and you might not pay any attention to it until later that day. So it can occur during the event, and you become aware of it. You may not notice it until maybe 24 hours after. It can present in different ways. It can be constant. It might linger. It may be inconsistent in terms of maybe it's just a certain position that elicits it. Or maybe it's a certain activity or movement that you can do or no longer can do. The discomfort might be aching. There may be a sharp pain. There could be numbness, tingling, throbbing. Maybe you feel unstable. Maybe there's a catching. And so catching is when you go from like a bend to straighten position or straight to bent position, and you notice as you're transitioning, there's this catching point where it just feels like if you can get beyond that point, your motion would be fine. The discomfort tends to be more localized, so more pinpoint in nature, although you might feel it throughout the muscle as well. You could feel it traveling down a nerve pathway, so like people might feel that numbness and tingling in their glute, and then it travels down to the foot, and that if someone's reporting nerve discomfort, and they tell us the pathway of their symptoms, sometimes the medical provider can then use that information to figure out maybe what nerve is involved. Symptoms could be in or at muscles, they can be at joints, they can be bones, so deep pain that, when you squeeze the muscle, move the muscle, that's not quite the thing that's uncomfortable, but it's more the bone. It could occur along nerves. And so symptoms might continue despite resting or recovery techniques. Activity may make it worse. You might try all your symptom management techniques of elevating, compressing, resting, and it's just not getting better. And so if you notice, time has passed 7-10 days and it's not improving, reach out. Maybe it isn't a big deal, but maybe there are things we can give you that will accelerate the healing process. If you notice that you're frequently catching or buckling, or it's unstable, or if it's just stopping you from living life and the pain is extreme, don't hesitate to reach out. Again, there might be things we know that can help it. It might not be a serious injury, but kind of getting you on a path to recovering more easily then becomes an option versus wasting some time. If we can get you back sooner, that's great. And if it is then something more significant, at least we know. Now, if you notice that you're having recurrent discomfort that kind of comes and it goes, and it's always maybe associated after you do a certain exercise or after a certain activity, and these micro traumas are happening and you note pain, but it's never stopped you before, I think those things are worth mentioning as well to a provider, because maybe you're not hurt yet, but if you're always feeling something in a particular spot and it's not that muscle soreness that I described before, let's look into it. Let's see what might be happening so we can address it before it becomes a bigger issue. So the take-home messages for me here are: movement, training, and performance are unique to you. We all have our own lives. We all have our own bodies. We all have our own jobs, right? That formula is going to be different for every person. So it means we all can't work out exactly the same. What are your goals? How do we develop skills for you to reach your goals? With those skills, we need to practice them. And with practice, let's put them under circumstances and conditions that they're going to improve your performance. I want you to train and feel ready for what you have to do in your daily life and job. And so performance practice is going to reflect that. And I want to put you under conditions that you would meet when you're performing. Everything's connected. Mental health, recovery, fuel, movement. We all need to take care of it. And you have a team. If you don't know where to start, please, please, please reach out. I'm more than happy to help. Again, my email is move@advancingathletics.com. You never have to figure out these things alone. And so if you don't know where to get started, or you are on a really good path and you just want to make some tweaks, use us as a resource. We're more than happy to help. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the talk, we were going to offer our OTOA members an exclusive deal. So it's going to be on a reconnaissance package. And with this package, you're going to receive some nutrition guides, a physical training guide with sample workouts, a sleep hygiene guide and recovery guide, mental performance guidance with sample workouts. And so this will be made available with a coupon after your free membership has expired. So check it out at advancingathletics.com if this is something you'd be interested in. There's a lot of great information, and maybe some of it will be applicable and helpful to you and your training and helping you thrive. So just let us know if you have any questions on anything we're offering here. And here's some resources. If you want more information, please reach out to me, move@advancingathletics.com. I want to thank all of you guys for your service and dedication to this country and the communities you serve. Greatly appreciate this opportunity to speak with all of you today. And if there's ever anything I can do for any of you, please let me know. Thank you, and stay well.